Good afternoon, and I promise a break is coming, so thanks for being patient with us. Very excited about this conversation and to join both Rebecca and Ashley on stage. I think to get us kind of kicked off, maybe you each could introduce a little bit about your roles at HP.
Sure. So I'm Ashley Riggs-Zeigen, and I'm on the global marketing team at HP. And I work on our highest end computers that are for people who need more than a standard issue laptop to do their job. And so we sell to people like data scientists working on machine learning models, visual effects artists working on computers or on movies. And so it's an interesting business because we're selling to other businesses, but they're quite influential in terms of what type of computer that they want to use. So I've been doing that for a couple of years, and prior to that, been in the tech industry.
Hi everyone, Rebecca Cottrell with Bosch and Thermador appliances. So you may see that in one of your kitchens, and I hope. And I have been at the company just a short 3 years, and before that I was with Mattel for 15 years, so any of my Mattel friends here. And then before that, let's see, M&M Mars. So I've kind of had all the experiences from impulse buys to more traditional CPG, and now in a little bit slower purchase cycle with appliances.
I'm really excited about this panel compared to some of the content that you've been listening to today, because something unique about each of their business models is this is not a straight B2C play, right? Either B2B or B2B2C. So there's some complexities here that both Rebecca and Ashley are going to speak to that I found to be really interesting. So I'm excited for you to listen for mapping the customer journey, including post-sale in the customer journey, and thinking about the important role that industry events play, and even HP-led and BSH-led industry events in mapping that customer journey and re-engaging with the customer. So listen for some of those key highlights as we get started. Maybe, Ashley, you could kick us off with talking about why is mapping the customer journey even important in your role at HP?
Yeah, so there's been so much discussion today about the consumer and really understanding the consumer. And that's something we do a lot of customer research at HP. We do really thorough customer journey maps, and it's helpful to identify those moments of truth where the customer really needs help deciding what they're going to purchase. They're having frustration with that process, and they are open to being helped by a company like ours. And so that really helps us focus our marketing. We did a recent research study and found 3 kind of key moments across the customer journey where we could then focus, where do we spend the most time on? One of them we were already doing a great job with. One, we were doing an okay job, there's room to improve. And the third, we were barely doing it all. And they really want to trial the product. We're talking about very expensive computers, up to $40,000 for a computer. They really want a hands-on experience before that they're buying it. And that's hard to offer. So we started thinking about what are some other ways that we could do that? Maybe we could do more product videos on YouTube. Maybe we could work with some of our resale partners to get that hands-on demo experience in store versus us trying to facilitate that across the world.
That's really helpful. So thinking about we talked about stages in the customer journey, right? And these 3 moments of truth. Rebecca, you also shared a little bit about, thinking about your point of view on the long sales cycle, and I use the term low replenish, right? So could you talk a little bit about your stages mapped to customer journey?
Yeah, I think for me it's interesting coming from a category. I was on Hot Wheels for many, many years, so car guys out there, car girls, I see you. Yeah, so dealing with Hot Wheels, you have your collector base, which they're in it for a long haul, and you've got to talk to them. And then you also, one of my favorite things was you have what I call the grocery store moment, and you have a little kid who's stamping his feet at the checkout stand, and that's the purchase journey. That's it, right? You're buying the Hot Wheel, you're done. So when we get into now a category where we're seeing people plan out this purchase for about a year, it's pretty average. If you're going to do a full remodel of your kitchen. So we have to think about all those different stages where somebody's going to make a decision or how they're going to be influenced on that decision. So I'm kind of always trying to challenge my team, how do we find that grocery store moment in a year cycle, and with people who are spending $40,000, $50,000, but it's still in you, right? And so I think that's what we have to hold sight of, is when in these purchase cycles is that true decision being made.
One of the things that we talked about when we got together and kind of prepared for this session was in the context of like a longer buying cycle, or buying a refrigerator once in 10 years or a stove once in 8 years. One of the key challenges, Rebecca, you shared about is keeping the consumer in the brand. Can you talk with us a little bit, share some secrets and strategies around how you do that at BSH?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. Think about any of your appliances. You buy it one time and you're like, ooh, I don't have to do that again for a while. That's an uphill battle for us. We don't want to be just a one-time purchase for that consumer. So really, we focus on attachment of package, but then really beyond that, we talk about kind of that generational aspect of these brands. And it's something that they've touched on a lot here with Taco Bell, which is kind of interesting. I'm drawing parallels. So many of the people I've talked to said, oh, my parents had a Bosch dishwasher. Or, and so they get this referral system, and that's really key for us. And that's where the after service, the loyalty component, making sure that the product quality is always top notch, because I have to think about 2 generations potentially of buyers as they grow up with these appliances in their house.
And I know we're going to talk about product development in a minute, Ashley, but before we do that, how about HP? Like, how do you keep the customer in the brand? I think about like peripherals and updates and those types of items. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and very similar to Rebecca, through services as well. So making sure, 1, you have a great, reliable product, and 2, when something goes wrong, that you have great service to go with it. Those things really influence repeat purchases in the future.
Yeah. And Rebecca, you touched on it a little bit here, but one of the things we talked about around product development to keep the customer in the brand is like launching into other smaller appliances, if you will. Can you talk a little bit about that too?
Sure, something that we're looking at, and I think as a brand that we're trying to expand, that we see a lot of examples out, is, what's these ancillary categories? How do you keep people engaged in the brand? So, for example, Bosch, we're launching our very first countertop espresso machine. Something we haven't done yet, but it's very core to our business in Europe, right? People love espresso in Europe, bring it to the US. How do we expand that in Thermador? Is it cookware? Is it aprons? So there's plenty of areas we can go to around the kitchen, but again, it's keeping to the core and the authenticity of the brand. And because we are such high quality products, as you said with the service side, people expect a lot. The bar is set very high. So I think that's the challenge for us as we grow, is how do you keep people in the brand, but don't dilute the expansion too much.
And then another topic that kind of evolved as we were discussing was something important, Ashley, that I think you brought up, which is about your language was like building strategy from the outside in.
Yeah.
So thinking about a product-driven strategy may seem like a no-brainer, right? But I think in the world of HP, when you think about the complexity of who your customer actually is, I'd love to hear more about that concept.
Yeah, so I think like really starting with the core of building a great product before you worry about all of the other parts of the journey is so important and obvious on the outside, but maybe the way you're organized, that's not your part of the business to worry about, or those sorts of things. And I think we had an example at HP. It was a software service we have gaming PCs. And we were sending acquisitions and acquiring leads, and they were signing up, and they were creating accounts, and then they never came back again. And so we quickly realized there was something really core, to the core of the product that needed to be fixed before we spend any more time or money whatsoever on acquiring new people to sign up for it. And I think like really starting with that product experience, finding your most loyal advocate customers, and then kind of moving up in terms of other parts of the marketing funnel is really important.
Yeah. And I imagine, Rebecca, you have similar stories perhaps, and also maybe to mention your third kind of luxury brand, which is like a totally different,
Totally different thing. Yeah. So for product development for us, what's interesting is, yes, we do a ton of consumer insights, ton of consumer research, but our leading indicator is really what we kind of consider our in real life influencers, and those are primarily designers and architects. So these aren't end consumers, but these are people going to be specifying and recommending. And so you have to really get those gatekeepers on board for us, because we're talking big high ticket purchase, long lead time cycle. Our product development cycle is somewhere in the range of 5 to 7 years. So it's a very long time. So we have to be very forward thinking, and you kind of have to take those steps and guess a little bit. We don't always get the benefit of test and learn. So getting those gatekeepers on board with us is very, very important. And that's why we partner pretty directly with a lot of designers, architects, and those types of design influencers. And we do have an even higher end brand called Gaggenau. For those of you who are looking to spend a lot of money on your kitchen, go ahead. But that's an interesting one too, is how do we balance out the needs for the highest end consumer on all of our brands throughout, because sometimes a lot of those factories and components are shared. So really, how do you define those differences, and how do you stay true to those differences?
Awesome. Drilling in a little bit deeper to something you just mentioned, Rebecca, and Ashley, I know you have a similar but different kind of framework. I mean, your customers are actually very complex, and how you reach your customer is very unique. So Rebecca, in your case, sales happen usually via local sort of independent stores and distributors, right? So can you talk to us a little bit about that, and then we'll pivot over to Ashley.
Yeah, this was a big change for me, coming from the world of Walmarts and Targets, and then all of a sudden now I'm talking Joe's Appliance Store, that's got one store. So this is a huge component of this industry still, is these independent dealers. And it's kind of exciting, because you're talking about people who've been in the industry 40, 50 years, who built this business up from the ground up, and they're so dedicated and so passionate. But it is a balance. How do we balance out growing with like a Home Depot or a Lowe's, and not alienating all of these 8,000 independent retailers across the country, to make sure that they're still on the journey with us? So that is certainly a challenge, and that's one of the challenges we talked a little earlier, this morning in our session about, do you guys sell direct? No, not at this moment. Not saying it won't ever happen, but that is a big balancing act for us. How do we keep all these independent retailers happy and not just completely undercut their margin and sell it direct? But obviously that's the way of the future. So these are a lot of the spaces that we're kind of wrestling with internally.
You both have like almost a layer, right? Because your end consumer may actually be one of us buying a refrigerator, but from a local distributor. Mm-hmm. And that distributor is really also your customer.
Yes.
And in the case of Ashley, we were talking a little bit more about your model. 80 or maybe more than 80% of your business is B2B or B2B2C. And you have two customers. You have your IT buyer, purchaser, and then you have the end user, I think is how you describe it. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think what you're referencing, so 80% of our sales are through channel partners, so like a CDW, and then HP has a direct sales force as well. But it's very interesting from a customer journey standpoint. We look at both the IT department that we're selling to, the actual customer making the purchase, and the end user of the product in terms of how we are messaging to them. They have very different needs and things that they're looking for. The end user is maybe looking for, I need a computer to run Autodesk Revit to do some 3D design. Where an IT person is like, they're worried about security, and they're worried about costs, and they're worried about how does this compare to what I can do in the cloud, and things like that. That an end user, it's not really their job to worry about. They really want a great product that is going to keep up with what they need and not crash or have lag time. And so the way that we think about them through the customer journey and especially in messaging is quite different from each other.
And then even within that ecosystem, I think about when I started at iSpot more than 2 years ago, right? I had to let them know what size laptop I wanted, right? Most of us in here have more of that experience. But you also have these very special need. You mentioned a $40,000, right, computer.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit, because that is a very different customer.
Yeah, so I think both the IT person and then the end user are influencing different parts of that. So the end user is typically starting with, I have this software program that I need to run, what kind of computer do I need to run it? They're looking up specs, that sort of thing. The IT person is typically, maybe if it's a big company, they have a relationship with HP already, and they are looking at kind of the full portfolio of products to kind of meet all of the employees' needs.
And then Rebecca, you shared something I think unique when we were talking about how you have to manage that sort of customer that is the local distributor showroom. So you have literally a sales force, right, within that very disparate showroom community that you're having to think about things like education and commissioning and all of that. Can you tell us a little bit about
So
that?
there's sort of two layers of marketing always in our world. We have obviously the end consumer user marketing, that family who's deciding on their kitchen and they decide they like this one the best. But really for us, and it's actually 3 layers, because we have the salespeople that are in your independent dealers. If you guys walk into Pacific Sales, there's going to be somebody who's going to sell to you. That person needs to be educated. They need to be an advocate. So you got to get them on board. And now you have to also make them, it has to be competitive against all the other brands that they offer, because we still operate in a commission-based system. So now you're competing with them on money as well as their heart, right? They have to believe in this brand. And so that's always, like I said, the gatekeepers, the influencers in real life is so key to our brand longevity and how we get people on board, because these decisions are influenced so many times by so many touch points that this year-long journey really takes.
It's a good segue into the stage of a customer sort of post-sale and how to navigate that. Rebecca, one thing you shared that I didn't even think about was around the local distributor, right? They also are often the ones providing service.
Yeah.
So talk about that.
That's another challenging side of it, is once they make the sale, they're excited, they made the sale, somebody got this great, beautiful kitchen installed. The first person that they're going to call if there's a problem is the person that they made the sale from, not me. And so that creates a whole nother layer of problem, because now the dealer who's selling, they don't want to take the phone calls, they don't want to be in the line of fire, so their easiest inclination is sell the brand that has the least amount of problems, right? The least worry, the best customer service. So customer service becomes such a key element to us on these high touch, high expense purchases that people are expecting answers and they want them quickly, and the dealers don't want to deal with it. They need to be pushing product out. So that is also another big balancing act for us, is how much do we spend on that after purchase journey and the customer service, the loyalty impacts, versus kind of getting people in the door. So that big balance for us.
And Ashley, how about you? Because of course there's training, right, or engagement, or I think we talked about like brand ambassador programs. Like how do you think about that post-sale customer journey stage?
Yeah, so it's actually very similar to you, like great customer service, and especially in an environment where think about being without your work computer for a full day is it's hard to get much done, right? So you really want to have a quick turnaround and great service, and a few problems that go wrong to begin with is really important. I think what you were touching on is the brand ambassadors. So one of the things that we've done in order to enter into new customer segments is to work with influential people within these kind of specialized job functions. So we work with about 25 data scientists around the world who are very influential in the data science community. I came from the consumer side, so I was a little surprised to find out there were influencers in a field like data science. but there certainly are. They don't have millions of Instagram followers, but they compete in competitions and share content on LinkedIn and Medium and platforms like that. And in exchange for free computers, we don't give them any other sort of monetary payment. They are really advocates on our behalf in very niche communities where they have a lot of influence. So it's been great to really build that advocacy kind of within the community just by giving them some better products to use than what they were using before.
Awesome. And do you involve them also in the product development phases?
We do, yeah. We work with them in a lot of different ways. So if we're coming out with new products, they're usually early testers. They're working with our product teams to provide feedback in addition to doing things like speaking at industry events on our behalf and really work with them in a variety of ways to get the customer's point of view before we kind of run into other customers.
Rebecca, you also shared the STAR Partner Program and also the Diversity and Design Program. I don't want to mash those two things together. They're very different, but yeah, can you tell us a little bit about each of those?
Yeah, quickly to touch on that. I mean, Star Partner is exactly what I've been talking about. That is our key trusted core designers, interior designers, architects. We bring them in for product information, trend information, etc. But I think the program that's unique that I think we're all very proud of at Thermador is our Diversity and Design Program. And that's supporting either underserved or minority or just anyone who's trying to come up in the interior design world and maybe doesn't have the resources or the connections to do so. And so what we're trying to do is make that effort to age down our brand slightly. It's a difficult journey, but as we start to age down by getting these kind of beginning interior designers, we can offer a mentorship program, a scholarship program, and then as well as job placement activities where we can start to be a support to the industry that supports us so well.
At the end of the day, how do you know whether what you do day to day or strategically quarter to quarter or year to year, whether it be industry events or what have you, how do you measure your success? Are there sort of measurable, quantifiable KPIs and metrics that you're each measuring? Is it more about sales or engagement?
Sales is always a good metric. Yeah, so certainly a lot of KPIs along the journey. I think as marketers, it's so important to have a deep sense of curiosity and to have an iterative mindset. Whatever you're doing, some of it is probably working and some of it isn't. And I think that process of just continuing to look at the KPIs that are important to your business. I've talked to a lot of people from consumer brands today, very different customer journey. But whatever is important to your business, really look at those and continue to make improvements quarter over quarter, year over year.
Yeah, I think for us the big challenge is kind of separating out the short-term KPIs versus the long-term and getting people to, at the senior level, to buy into that concept of there's a long-term KPI and it may not be so readily apparent. So, of course, sales is great. For us, lead generation through either our physical showrooms or online, interactions, everything from our CRM. But yeah, really for us also brand awareness. Obviously, we track all those traditional brand health metrics. But that long-term, I think, sentiment, brand sentiment, and then the net promoter scores, those are the things that we see in the future is what we're trying to do, that long-term build. And it's a slow build. And there's a lot of executives that, they don't want to wait. So I think that's probably our biggest challenge is showing that we may have immediate metrics, but the long-term is also just as important.
Shifting just a little bit, when I was speaking with Rebecca one-on-one, she was talking about the importance in their strategy of employee advocacy in building a corporate culture that really fosters excitement and advocacy based in knowledge, et cetera. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think this is something coming from an engaging and awesome company like Mattel, where they do a great job of making sure that everyone's got a toy to take home, right? Like you get a free toy, take a toy, I don't know, give them out at Halloween, whatever. So same thing at M&M Mars, everyone got a box of candy at Halloween. And I think there's something to that. Make your employees your best advocate, and that trickles down. So I expect all of my employees to engage with our brands, to want to own our brands. I make it as easy as possible for them to own our brands. I think that's the real key to it, is if you have people that work with you and work in your company that can be your number one advocate, that trickles down, in our case, to the salespeople, that trickles down to the independent dealers, and then eventually to the consumer. So I'm very passionate about building it from within, because ultimately my employees, our coworkers, are kind of our consumer base too.
Ashley, anything that you would add? I'm putting you on the spot a little bit.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, we do employee advocacy as well. A lot of employee advocacy, like on social media, making it easy for people to promote the brand, but really, obviously, helping everyone try to own products, employee discounts, that sort of thing, in order to build brand advocates. We have, I think, 50,000 employees around the world, and so all of them, like, really loving the brand and using the products is super important.
And then we also talked about challenges, and it's going to sound a little bit like redundant 4 years later to talk about COVID, but Rebecca, I mean, you were majorly hit supply chain. So could you talk to us a little bit about the last 4 years and how you're doing?
I think COVID was good and bad for our industry. It was great because everyone stayed home and everyone was like, hey, let's remodel the kitchen, or let's buy an Airbnb, and everything's fun. So that was great. But on the bad side is, as soon as people spend a lot of money and they expect something to show up, and then it doesn't, and then it doesn't, and then it doesn't, and now we're talking months of delay, that because containers weren't available or parts weren't available, that's a hard thing to come back from. And that's something that's very visible. If you look at our social media, for the longest time, the only comments we got back were, well, but I didn't get my order's delayed, or, you know, and that's a tough balance. We had to decide for a while, do we just go dark on social media because we couldn't get out of the way of the supply chain problem. So that's something that we're still battling back from. All we can say is, you know, obviously in this case we said, just let the products be your guide, keep going. We're gonna come back, everything's gonna be in stock, everyone's gonna have the same great experience, and these sentiments will die down. But it was a very trying time for us. I think that negative sentiment really did force us to kind of rethink engagement in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. We had a very similar situation on the business I'm currently working on. At the time, I was on our consumer business, which was great because everyone needed a new Chromebook for their kids that were at home. And so that was, we were really having a hard time keeping up with supply on the consumer side, but on the B2B side, ran into a lot of the same supply issues I think a lot of us can relate to. And we lost accounts during that time. And so now they're going through that refresh cycle over the last year and kind of coming into this year. And so trying to win back some of those accounts, and once you lose an account, it can be quite difficult to do. So we definitely face some of those same challenges with supply during COVID.
I'm not sure if this is related or not, but I remember, Ashley, you talking about, like, you've had phenomenal growth in the last 3 years too, and you've had to manage that a little bit. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, that's really moving into like new customer segments. So I think we work in a lot of areas like we sell to architects and legacy industries, but really looking at where can these computers be used in really growing areas, and data science is a great example of that, where we've increased that business significantly over the last few years.
I think we maybe have 30 seconds or a minute left. We didn't talk about AI, and a couple people on stage have. I'm not going to put you on the spot there, but where are you innovating?
I think my favorite thing, and I gave some people a sneak peek this morning, we have a lot of cool features in our new refrigerator, so a little shout out. We have some cameras embedded where it will tell you, for example, you know, how long your fruits and vegetables have before they're going to expire. We're working on some things like biometric screening where my I'm always like, in the nicest possible way, your fridge might tell you, like, why don't you choose yogurt instead of ice cream today? So, like, we're working on some of that stuff, which is really fun, but it's tough, you know, it's a challenge. But we're trying to infuse it where we can.
There was like some real-time feedback on
Yeah,
that product idea.
Nice.
Yeah, and AI has brought a lot of opportunities. So a lot of software is using AI now, and so there's a whole new category. Microsoft has been very involved in kind of building the category around AI PCs, but more to come in that space for sure as kind of needs evolve around actually doing AI locally versus in the cloud.
Well, thank you both so much. I learned a lot. I know we all did.